What's up everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Ideas That Sounded Way Better in My Head. I am your host Joseph, and today we're going to be remaking Minesweeper. So now that I'm an experienced game developer with a whole 5 weeks of experience under my belt, I thought it'd be fun to do a game jam of sorts. Unfortunately, due to my crippling social anxiety and just general low self-esteem, I didn't want to enter a public competition until I knew what it was going to feel like and just know if I was going to be able to complete it in time, so I decided to just do one by myself. That sounds way sadder when I say it out loud. So starting on a Friday afternoon at around 1:30 p.m., I set aside 48 hours of my time to remake Minesweeper from scratch and give it a roguelite feel. Now I hear yourself asking, Joseph, why? No, that's just it. Joseph, why? And this idea came about when I was talking to a buddy of mine about this video, trying to get ideas for games to remake or remaster, something that would be simple enough that I could recreate in this amount of time with my experience, and just maybe something that would be a little bit popular and get some clicks. And he responded with Minesweeper. And I told him that idea was just absolutely terrible, to which he responded, so is your channel. So we're making Minesweeper. So I started off the first day just trying to get the ball rolling, get the basics for Minesweeper down. I figured it'd be an easy project. I already had some ideas and some plans going into it. I figured it'd take a good hour or two and then I could move on. Turns out I was very, very wrong. While the mechanics for Minesweeper aren't necessarily complex, actually implementing the game board and the logic wasn't anything I had experience with. I had an idea going into it about how to build the map, but after doing a little bit of research, I realized that all the ideas I had would have been terrible implementations of Minesweeper, so I kind of had to start completely from scratch. That being said, there were quite a few guides and tutorials out there on how to build a grid system and how to implement that into Minesweeper, and going through these was actually pretty enjoyable. I not only learned new techniques and mechanics in Unity, but also in C# that will really help me moving forward. And in general, I'm glad that I did that bit of research first, so I didn't just try to start the project with what my original plan was. So after watching a few hours of tutorials, I basically had a grid system that you could click on to change the values of the individual cells. With that established, it was pretty easy to find some logic and algorithms on how to generate a Minesweeper map, so I just plugged that into the grid system, and we had a grid system that could generate mines and tell you how many mines were surrounding a specific cell. Following that up, it was pretty easy to just reveal the tiles since we already have the logic to change values when a cell is clicked. So we just click on the cell, it reveals the tile and the value that it holds, and we had a very basic version of Minesweeper. It took a while to implement the neighbor part of it to where if you click on an empty cell, it will reveal any empty neighbors, but that was kind of just some simple recursion and it took more just trial and error than anything. That being said, after all of that, I just had Minesweeper. That wasn't really interesting and the scope of the project was a little bit bigger, so I started brainstorming on some ideas to make the game feel more roguelite, if you will. If you won't, well, too bad, I already recorded this video, nothing I can do about it now. In general, Minesweeper actually already has some roguelite elements. I mean, you start each map with absolutely nothing, regardless of what you've done previously in the game. It's randomized, there's a lot of connections there, but we had to take it a step farther. The plan I had to make this game feel more like a roguelite was to have the setting and the style of this game be in a dungeon with the goal to progress through different floors or Minesweeper maps while avoiding dangerous runes, which would be the dungeon's version of mines, all while escaping this collapsing dungeon. The gameplay loop that I came up with was that every floor you have a time limit to complete the Minesweeper map before you lose. If you hit a mine, the game board just resets. You don't actually lose the entire game straight up. In addition to the normal Minesweeper rules, we had to add in some loot because what's a dungeon crawler without loot? So after some minor tweaks, I made it so if you hit an empty cell, you have a random chance to get a shield or just get extra time. The shield would basically protect you if you hit a mine or a rune, and the extra time, well, just gave you extra time. Not the most exciting pieces of loot, but I wanted to keep this simple because I had no idea really what my time allocation was going to be moving forward. So with these all in place, I had the core mechanics for the game done. I had a playable gameplay loop with a way to win, a way to lose, and with 12 hours of work completed, I decided to call it a day, get some sleep, and prepare for day number 2. So after far too little sleep, I woke up to myself thinking, you know what would make Minesweeper even more fun than it already is? making it even more random and unforgiving. So I decided to add another mechanic to the game, falling boulders. Since the idea for this game was that you're escaping a collapsing dungeon, thematically it makes sense. So I wrote some code to occasionally find an unrevealed cell, shadow it, give it a slight tint, as well as the cells surrounding it, and after a set time, the boulder would hit the ground, revealing any cell that it hit, meaning that if it hit a rune and a rune was revealed, it would count as though you clicked on it. The idea for this was to make it feel a little bit more intense and fast-paced, and I just wanted to give it another mechanic to make it not just Minesweeper. So after building this in, I decided to actually play the game. Other than testing features, I hadn't really played it because, again, it's just Minesweeper. So after I finished making the boulder mechanic, I decided to actually give it a try. And well, all I'm going to say is that I've never had more anxiety when playing a game of Minesweeper than I did when I fully played this game for the first time. By the time I realized that this mechanic probably wasn't too fun, I had invested too much time into it already, and I had to just move on because I felt like I would need a lot of time to actually design the visuals for the game, and it turns out I was right. Now, for those of you who don't know, I do have this bigger project that I'm working on, building a roguelike platformer, and it's going to look really cool, mainly because I'm not the one designing it. So going into the design for this game, I was not very optimistic. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not terrible at design. I know the concepts for design and I can use all of the programs, but in case you haven't noticed, I'm not the most creative person in the world. Point in case, I'm making Minesweeper. So right off the bat, I didn't have high hopes for the actual design of this game. I went in wanting to design a dungeon-themed style for this game, so I spent a long time creating a lot of different concepts, and just none of them worked. They all looked absolutely terrible. I wanted this Minesweeper map to look like a dungeon floor, and you were uncovering tiles and placing runes, and it just looked terrible. So I decided to bring in the big guns. I called in my wife and had her tell me what sucked in the designs, and yeah, she did. So we scrapped everything that I was working on and just started from scratch. The concept that we ended up coming up with was a lot different from what I had originally planned. Originally, I wanted it to be a dungeon crawler, kind of styled to be a very classic dungeon floor and dungeon atmosphere, and we came up with this banner or cell design that looked really bright and neon green, and it reminded me a lot of a slime. So we took this style and ran with it and ended up changing all of the designs and making new designs off of this style, and changed the concept from being a pure dungeon crawler to just be more themed after a slime. It still fit the general theme that I wanted for this game, and I really liked where the style was going, so we just kind of went with this, and Minesweeper was born. It makes even less sense than a collapsing dungeon, but hey, like I said, it works, and I was running dangerously low on time at this point. So with a color palette established and a basic style ready, I designed the rest of the elements for the game and started implementing them. By the time this entire game was rebranded, it was getting close to midnight, and I still had a lot of work to do to actually make the game work. So I decided to just say good enough on the design and went back to working on the game. I spent the next few hours implementing this new design, creating a simple UI, fixing some bugs to get the game into an actual playable state, and then I created a simple main menu and game over screen. Before calling it a day, I generated some very simple sound effects so the game at least had a little bit of depth to it, compiled a build, and sent a copy to my friend to try out in the morning, and with that, I decided to call it a day at around 4 a.m. So after a solid 5.5 hours of sleep, I woke up bright and early on day number 3 to a few bug reports and messages from the friend who I sent the game to just a few hours earlier. So I spent the beginning part of day number 3 just cleaning up the game, fixing those bugs, making the tweaks that he had suggested, and at around noon, I remembered that it was daylight savings, and I had to have the game done by 12:30 instead of 1:30, so I called it quits on making changes and worked on getting the project uploaded to itch.io. Now I should probably mention I've never once uploaded anything to this website, and I had no idea what I had to do, so I was really hoping it was easy, and luckily it wasn't too bad. The game compiled on WebGL perfectly the first time, and the only real problems that I ran into was that the interface in the UI was made to be played on a 1080p monitor, so when played in the browser, it just didn't scale well. So I made some adjustments to make it scale and fit properly in the browser, and with about 10 minutes left, I threw some graphics together, made the page look presentable, and then hit save, and it was done. 48 hours of work uploaded and ready to play. If you are interested in playing this game, there's a link in the description to the itch.io page. Just keep in mind that this game is, what's the best way of putting this? Bad, rough around the edges, barely playable, not fun. I mean, take your pick. I don't know. I probably should have spent some more time planning and coming up with a better idea for what game to make. But hey, I'm new to this. I don't know what I'm doing, and it was fun to make at the very least. And with that, it was done. My 48-hour time limit was expired, and this unholy abomination of a game was, for the lack of a better term, complete. Now, I won't lie to you, I did push some small tweaks up to the game after the time limit had expired. After sending it to a few of my friends, I realized that there were some numbers that needed to be tweaked slightly to make the game at least a little bit enjoyable. Give me a break, I'm still new to this, I have no idea what I'm doing, and I'm going to use that noob card as much as I possibly can before it expires. That being said, for the most part, the game was complete and pushed up within that 48-hour time limit, so I'll give myself a pass, especially since it's my thing I'm doing. It's not like I'm doing it for an actual game jam. If you do want to give the game a shot, there's a link to the itch.io page in the description, and if you do try it out, let me know how far you get and if you win. Neither myself nor my friends were actually able to complete all 5 levels of the game. I can't say I enjoy Minesweeper enough to actually play that much of it, but if you are a Minesweeper prodigy and you want to give it a shot and you do get pretty far, let me know. I'm actually curious. I'm pretty sure it's possible. The numbers should work out to where you can actually complete it, but let me know if you guys have any success with it. That being said, if you guys did like this video, let me know. I am planning on doing more of these in the future, as I found it's a really good way to just kind of take a break from a bigger project, learn something new in a condensed amount of time, and it was fun, so I can see myself doing this in the future. And if you guys want to see videos on that, let me know and I can make it into another video for you guys. That being said, if you did like this video, be sure to like it, and if you aren't already, subscribe to the channel to be notified when I release new videos. That all being said, that's all I have for you for this video. I am Joseph. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your week. I'll see you next time.